Welcome to the Wonder podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to give us a quick introduction on who you are?
Yep, so my name is Khaver Ehsan. I am an English teacher. I am currently working at King's School Al Barsha in Dubai. I've been a teacher for about 16 years, specializing in GCSE, English literature and language, all the way up to A level.
And where were you before you were in Dubai?
So I started my journey in teaching at actually the school that I went to as a secondary student, Norlington Boys. And then from there, I was in Essex. And then I moved to Dubai. I did the international adventure for 2 years, then came back to London for 3 years, and then went back during the kind of height of COVID in 2020. And then I've been there since, and alhamdulillah, enjoying it.
Al Barsha is a very nice area.
Yeah, it's really nice, really nice. It's very accessible.
And tell me, what's the difference for you in the education where you are now versus where you grew up?
The education now versus when I grew up. So in terms of comparing it now to when I was a student.
Whatever comes to mind.
So I think the education, I'll look at it on three layers. The education from when I was at school to now is very different, obviously, with the introduction of technology. See, school was very book based, and now it's very kind of technologically based. So that's one of the key things. I think the education system is a lot more kinesthetic, whereby they want students to get up and move around and not really stay seated. And I think the education system is trying to cater to the way students and young people and pretty much everyone, the way they access technology now, the way they process information. Because I think young people in particular are so wired to want to get the information that they're looking for very quickly. And I think with the introduction of apps like TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat and YouTube, they're looking for a particular answer and they want it really quickly. So their attention span doesn't last as long as it should. Their patience levels in trying to go through various books to find what they're looking for, to deepen their understanding, to think outside of the box, to try to widen their research. I think that's one of the things, that's one of the skills that we're kind of losing in the modern world today, especially with the introduction of open AI and chat GPT. It's very specific. So what they're looking for, I mean, it has its pros, but I always say to students, think of it as something that can help you. Let it aid your learning and don't let it think for you. So they kind of use it as a tool where they think it's the be all and end all. And I thought I would put that to the test. As an English teacher, I gave them an essay to look at, and I always try to familiarize my students with the marking criteria that we use, because I want them to become independent learners and really think about how they make their own progress. So by giving them a marking criteria that is simplified to tailor to their needs, to tailor to their understanding, I gave them chat GPT essays, and I asked them to critique essays, and they looked at them and they started picking out and nitpicking. Oh, it hasn't done this and it hasn't done that. And it was only later when I revealed this is a chat GPT essay. So where you haven't given it full marks, you've just given it more than half marks. Let that be a lesson that this isn't the answer. So going back to your original question, it's changed massively, and I think technology has really, really changed that. I think COVID was also a turning point in the education system, because where students were going back to school and they were having to socially distance and use certain workspaces and not touch things, books became less and less apparent, and laptops and devices and iPads. And that now I think post COVID, we've just got this culture of kids just constantly being in front of a screen. So as soon as they walk into classrooms now, the first thing they do is open their laptops. So from a behavioral point of view, you're always having to police and monitor behavior a lot more, because the students are just zoning out because they want to get onto their laptops and start watching YouTube and catch up with the latest football scores and everything else.
Isn't it fascinating that we don't talk about the world of work in the same way?
Yeah, yeah,
People are stuck in front of computers. They're not, you know, they won't walk over and ask their colleague something. They'll send them an email and wait 3 days.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I was saying this to my wife because she sort of works from home now. I said I couldn't do it. I personally couldn't do it. I like interacting with people. Sometimes when I'm at school and I need to ask a particular teacher about a particular student or anything, rather than sending them that email, I like to walk over to their classroom and speak to them in person. But and you're right, this world of just emailing, and kids now, they're losing these social skills. They're losing their skills to communicate with people, because now I think home has become such a luxury where they have everything at home. That whole element of going out and meeting friends and meeting people, they just don't do it anymore. They would much rather stay at home. I mean, I was talking to a few colleagues, and they were talking about leaving the teaching game and getting into new jobs and new career paths. And I said, what's one of your motivations? And they said, oh, the ability to work from home. And I think even in interviews, when you've got candidates, and the employer will ask the candidate, do you have any questions for us at the end of the interview? They might say, how many days can I can I work from home? So it's one of those things. It's become so I think is detrimental to social skills. Kids just, I always say to the kids in class, I say, you use your phone here much more than here, because you're not speaking, and that's what it's for. It's a phone to speak and call people, but they're just using it in these devices, and they're texting each other. And it's amazing. In my early years of teaching, I remember uh, my year 9 class, they finished an assessment, and I said to them, right, seeing that you finished 10 minutes early, I'm going to give you a little bit of a treat. I'm going to let you have a little bit of free time where you can talk to your friends now. You've done your assessment, well done. But all I ask is, please don't make too much noise. There are other classes in session, so don't make too much noise. I didn't get a peep out of them because they just wanted to get on their phones and their laptops. They didn't want to talk to each other. And I just thought, oh my God, this is terrible that, they don't want to break away from sitting in silence and doing an assessment and just wanting to uh, talk to their friends. They just want to get straight onto their phones.
I mean, you see the same in restaurants in Dubai, right?
Yeah,
People are sitting at
yeah.
a table and each and every person's on a phone.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And again, we play that rule, that game, when I get back to London, because I come home every summer, and I always meet up with my friends from university that I used to live with. So we're all from different parts of the country, so we always meet up in a central area, and we go for a bite to eat. And the rule is always, whoever pulls out the phone first is paying the bill, because this should be quality time. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And when my wife and I, we go out, we always notice it when we're sitting in a restaurant where you'll have a couples, they're sat opposite each other, and they're on their phones just constantly. And I call it a state of hypnosis. And I test the kids with that, because I'll say to them, obviously, as an English teacher, I have a love for reading. I have a passion for reading. I always try to reignite that magic of reading. And I'll say to them, do you remember the book that we read in year 8 or year 7? And they'll vaguely think, yeah, I remember it. And I'll say, name me a character. And they'll give me a character. And I'll say, and what happened with this person or that person? And they'll be able to tell me. So they can recall that information. And then I say to them, now, tell me the last video that you scrolled across on TikTok. Must have been last night, must have been this morning. Can you tell me what it was? Like, I can't remember. I said, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? You're in this state of hypnosis where you're just scrolling endlessly, and those algorithms are just, they're just absolutely just seeping the energy out of your body and taking it from you, and you're just literally there like a robot, just scrolling endlessly, and you don't remember any of these things. And it's just what's happened is these things have, they've just allowed young people, not just young people, everyone in general, they've mastered the art of wasting time. When I talk to kids, I said, when we were younger, our punishment would be, go to your room. If go to your room.
That's not punishment
That's
anymore.
that's that's a holiday. They go to their room now. They'll say, "All right, I'll see you in 6 months," because they can order their food online, and all they need is their phone and their charger, so they can keep the device going, and that's it. So this is the sort of state we're in. I joke with kids all the time at school, and I swear to, I kid you not, they've had to really think about it. I'll say to kids, "Tell me what's more important, oxygen or Wi-Fi?" And they go, "Oof, that's a." So yeah,
Why would you need oxygen if you don't have Wi-Fi?
exactly. They'll go on ChatGPT and find out how to get oxygen.
When you started and you were talking about people now relying so heavily on things like ChatGPT, didn't we always do that? Didn't we always defer our trust to somebody else? Newspapers, the 10 o'clock news. Somebody else was always pulling the strings.
Mm,
And the big conversation right now is things like ChatGPT hallucinating or telling lies.
yeah.
But we didn't make a big deal about it when the media lied to us. Well, I mean, some people did, but it wasn't like a huge outcry the way it is right now.
It's a really interesting point. I think now, because of the access to information, it is more important than ever to cross-reference where you're getting your sources from. But unfortunately, like I said, people allow technology and social media to think for them,
But
and
that's
it
what I'm
takes away.
saying. Haven't we always done that? You're a learned person. You understand the point of reading widely. Most people don't read widely.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. But I think when we used to get our information, because that's how we access information. I think because of the lack of accessibility, we then still had to think about it a little bit more, question it. I think that's what it is. I
But
think
that's what I'm saying. I don't think people did question it.
you don't think?
I think that's why propaganda is so effective.
Yeah, you're right. And I think, again,
And
now,
and less
now,
so today, like you said, because we can have the power of the entire knowledge of the internet uh, available at a prompt.
yeah, you're right. You're right. I think now, because we have so much access to it, lots of people are able to cross-reference and check and research. But others, they just take whatever at face value, and they've got access to it all the time. I think growing up, we would have access to it in short spurts, i.e., the news, a newspaper, and then we would talk to our friends, and we would have a discussion about it, and we'll take alternative opinions. But when you're just constantly being fed a particular narrative, it's more important than ever to question it now, rather than just follow it, because if you let your phone become the window of the world, then it's going to shape your thinking for you. And there's so much more accessibility out there for people to train their brains in the right way. But is technology allowing us to train our brains in the right way? The way these algorithms work, you know, why would you want to learn, I don't know, things about religion? There's a lot of religious videos out there, podcasts, tutorials, whatever it might be. And then there's things like, well, there's things like the filth that they see online, and just things that are so not important, football talk and whatever else. And they'll do, or they'll watch these prank videos, and it just absolutely, like I say, I use that word so much. It's just this state of hypnosis that then really takes them away from their reality. And part of that reality is their ability to communicate with the world. And I remember having this conversation with kids, and I said to them, growing up, because I'm a Gen X, so growing up in the 80s and the 90s, school was our life. Outside of school, we didn't know anyone else. I didn't know anybody from any other school. The only friends I had were the ones in school. Therefore, school was my life. When I got home after school, I didn't have access to the world anymore. My access was my family. But now, where we said school was our life, to kids now, school gets in the way of their life. Because they've got so many other things going on, school just gets in the way of their life. So,
And
and
do you think there's any positives in that they have more of everything?
if they if they're critical thinkers, if they're if they've been raised in that way, there are the plus sides, but there's also you've always got to weigh it up. And unfortunately, the way I look at kids being raised now, they've become more distant from their families. They've even become distant from their friends, and it's just very important to them to have this image that they have with followers and people subscribing to them, and it gives them that validation. So it's very scary.
Well, those
As
are the role models that they're being fed.
pardon?
That's the behavior of the role models that they're being
Yeah.
fed.
So this is the thing. Growing up, we had our friends in school, but then when we came home, those role models, or those people of discipline and structure, were our family members, our older siblings, our parents. But unfortunately now, the way kids lock themselves away, they're being raised by their phones. They're being raised by social media. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. I mean, they've become there's to an extent, kids have become more intelligent. They have become more intelligent, but
More resourceful?
yeah, I think that's probably a better word to use. They probably become a lot more resourceful. But the scary part is it's how they're using their resources, and then what they're doing with those.
You talked about being fed information. The first person I interviewed for this podcast was a teacher in the US who'd lost his job for reading a phrase out of To Kill a Mockingbird. And essentially, the school board was censoring the book.
Okay,
How do you see any of that in your line of work today? Things that you can't say, or texts that you're not allowed to put in front of kids.
absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely.
really?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. In one of the schools that I worked in the Middle East, we weren't allowed to teach George Orwell's Animal Farm.
Okay. And what was the phraseology around not allowed to teach?
They just said we don't teach this book. We wanted to teach it. They said we don't teach this book because we're an Islamic school and this has the depiction of pigs in it, and that was the reasoning behind it. And I I spoke to the head, and I said the purpose of this book is to teach the kids context, and it's done in a satirical way through animals. But we're teaching them the Russian Revolution. We're teaching them, from a linguistic point of view, it's a masterpiece. Um, so I think we should teach, and we shouldn't really think about, you know, the depiction of pigs. I said, we teach in a school where 95% of these kids are going to go out of the UAE to university. So they're going to go and see the big bad world. And when they get there, lo and behold, they might come across a pig in their lifetime. So I think these are some of the things that we should teach them. I teach John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, and in that, they use the N word in there. Um, but from a contextual point of view, we're teaching these kids this is what it was like at that time. We're talking about the Great Depression. We're talking about the Jim Crow laws and racism and sexism at the time. Doesn't mean that we practice it now when we understand how wrong it was, but we still, in order for us to show the students how wrong it was, we have to expose it to them first, to then make them see this is what the time was like, and this is what it is now. That's my opinion on it.
I'm currently reading um oh, what is it? The Wrath of you know what, I'm gonna have to go and get it. Give
The
me a second.
Wrath,
That's why I was getting it wrong. The Grapes of Wrath.
Grapes of Wrath. Yeah, yeah. John Steinbeck.
And
Great book.
so uh I've spent so many years speed reading through easy reads. I'm having to reread paragraphs
Oh,
because
really?
he goes into such descriptive attention to everything.
Yeah,
What people look like, the metaphors that he's using. Like you
yeah,
have to reread it to get, oh my goodness, did he just say that?
yeah. Well, I'm glad you appreciate Steinbeck's use of language because the genius, absolute genius. The way the and if you reread, I don't know if you've read it before, but if you read of Mice and Men, the way he describes some of the things and the cross referencing of certain things is amazing. It really, really is. And these are things that I want the students to capture and I want them to appreciate. And I don't think we can have. I personally don't believe in that kind of censorship in literature. I don't believe. I mean, you can choose the type of text that you want to teach, but depending on why you're teaching it, what's the reason for teaching this particular book. If you're trying to teach them about cultural historical context, then teach it without the censorship. Teach it so that kids can understand what life was like at the time and why this is now not acceptable. I teach a poem by John Agard called half caste, and it's a term that kids just would have no idea what it means now. They absolutely have no idea. And I would say to them, I said, growing up, this was a term that we use quite freely for mixed race people. And then when I told them the word caste, where it comes from, in Latin, it's castus, which means impure. So when people were being branded half caste, that meant half of them was impure. Can you see why it's wrong? And then I say, oh wow, okay. So then so it's things like that. They would never know that if we didn't teach them. They might come across these
Or
terms.
your delivery is wrong, you need to put it on TikTok.
Yeah, that's right. How many times I've been told, start making videos. I said, yeah, I might have to. But then my kids will say to me, Dad, don't you dare.
So you're saying that technology is all encompassing now. It's taken all of the air out of the room and all the attention. What are you doing? What tools are available to you now and techniques that can make this digestible, palatable, interesting for people when they're learning?
I embrace technology. I do embrace it because it's there. Can't get away from it. Like I said, I embrace AI. So
But the
I
word you're using are quite interesting. Can't get away from it. That doesn't go hand in hand with embrace.
yeah, well, I suppose, well, you can't get away from it if you wanted to. So therefore, because you can't get away from it, you think, if you had your way, would you? Yes.
Okay, so that's interesting.
Yeah, I would.
You would
I
you
would.
would lock it in the drawer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which interestingly, when we go back to school in September, we're now going to become a phone free zone. So we're going to be a phone free school. So when the kids come to school, they have to give their phone to their teacher, and we lock it away in a safe, and then they'll get it back at the end of the day. So kids are going to be without their phones. So yes, if I could, 100%. But
And what do you think the result is going to be of the phones being locked away?
um, the kids will. It's trying to recapture their attention.
Right, but what do you think? Like, play it out. What do you think are going to be the positives and the negatives of locking away the phones?
So the positives would be the attention. The kids will have to speak with one another. The kids will have to look at various books for research, and yeah, just getting them using books once again, getting them talking to one another.
The time between a fix, essentially, isn't long enough for them to detox. Their mind is still going to be on, the dopamine hit that they're not getting right now.
Again, this is going to take time. It's not going to happen
That's what
overnight.
I'm thinking, right? You were really saying you want to lock away the phones until they're grown-ups. That's what you were really saying. But this is just going to be locking the phone away for a few hours.
Yeah, yeah. But again, just I think giving them the skills and giving them the if it's the right word to use, the confidence to for them to know that they don't need the phone. They don't need.
Is that true? Like, look, we all walk around with a phone all day, every day. Most of us walking like zombies with the phone in front of our face,
Yeah.
complaining when our batteries are low. And so, is it not more beneficial to show them self-restraint, appropriateness, and making the best use of them? Like, this is a tool here that has the world's knowledge. Instead of watching a TikTok, you
They'll have.
you just observe something. Let's dive deep. Everybody go and tell me what the best prompt is on a OpenAI to find out this knowledge. And then, one kid reads out the response and another kid reads, "Oh no, I got this." Well, what did you type in? Like, that would create real discussion of, well, what's the best way to use this technology?
You're right.
Instead of having, basically drug addicts walking around waiting for their next fix and not paying attention because they've now been forced.
It's an interesting point, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the phone is separate to their laptop, so their laptop they'll still have access to.
Right, but the laptop doesn't give you a dopamine hit.
Right. So the laptop will give you access to the information that you need for that particular subject. The phone, however, the phone, it what's the word I'm looking for? It dominates everything they're doing. And when they're having to do something, there'll be no attention to detail because they just want to get the job done so that they can get back to their phones.
If
So
you
they
were
don't.
if you and I were in a relationship and there was an item of your wardrobe that I banned you from, you probably didn't care about it before. You will
Mm.
after I ban you for it.
Yeah,
You'll care so deeply about it. You won't be able to get over it.
yeah, I suppose so. But kids,
And so
kids,
now you have an impediment to the learning where they are obsessed with the thing that's been taken away,
yeah,
more so than they were prior.
that's right, that's right. But I think it has to be something. Um,
And by the way, the parents aren't co-opting. You aren't co-opting the parents on this because the parents are going to give them the phone back straight away.
yeah, you're right. They are. It's again. This is something that we're starting, and it's
I think
gonna
I think this is going to be an
during
abject failure.
using the teething period. It's gonna be problematic.
I don't think there's going to be a teething period. I think this is going to fail quite dramatically.
Do you think?
I think what they're doing in Australia is actually probably the right thing. There's like under a certain age, no devices, full stop, not allowed.
But then, do they get them at home?
No, not allowed.
Okay. Yeah.
So
This.
they've taken the power out of the hands of parents, which is a whole other discussion.
Mm,
Not allowed.
yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that, and I'm sure that model probably works.
Well, I can see it being less problematic from a learning standpoint. Obviously, from a free will standpoint, it's slightly different. But from a
Yeah.
learning standpoint, you're not, it's not hours between a fix. You're not taking something away and then giving it back and then taking it away and then giving it back
Yeah.
and creating that cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, I suppose we can only exercise the limited power that we have,
No,
and
I mean, think about it, right? This is how you control prisoners, right? This is hostage theory, right? You give them a little bit of water and then you take it away, and over time, it causes real psychological issues.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. Technology, like I said, if I
Well,
had,
maybe embrace it.
pardon,
Maybe look, they're going to walk around with their phones for the rest of their lives, or whatever device comes next. And obviously, the phone right now is so dominant, as you said.
mm,
Embrace it. They've got the world of knowledge at their fingertips, unlike any time ever in history.
but this is what I said. So obviously, if I had the choice, I would take it away. But because it's there, I look into it, I tap into it, and I have embraced it and said, okay, we can use this. But for me, it's about, like I said, it's not about thinking for you. Yes, aid, let it aid your thinking, but don't let it think for you. So as somebody, when I'm trying to create an atmosphere in the classroom,
You
because
want
when,
to make them, you want to make them think.
yeah, and I want them to write creatively. Now, creative writing is probably the hardest thing to do as an English teacher. Now, why? Because the lack of imagination. The kids, everything is fed to them through their screen. Therefore, they have almost lost the ability to paint pictures in their mind.
Do you think that's true, or is it just a lack of motivation for the task?
No, I think it's true. I actually think it's true because I get them to think about it and they just can't. They say, I say, what do you see? They say, I don't see anything. I don't see anything. I said, close your eyes. Close your eyes. I'm going to read this passage to you. Tell me if you were there. I'm trying to immerse them. And some of them just say, no, I don't know.
Have you ever played those games where someone says a word or a sentence and the next person's got to carry it on?
Yeah,
Those are really effective.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Those are actually phenomenally effective because it's a game now. And so I used to coach a lot of football, and kids are not interested in instruction. Games, though, they love playing games. And in the games, they 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 are probably the best footballers on the planet. Put them in a match in a competitive situation, like they're looking towards their coach to like tell them what to do.
yeah,
The
interesting.
games, they know the rules, they know how to win.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. And we, like I said, the learning has become so much different now because we kind of cater to those kinesthetic learners. We try to play those games. We try to get them up and out of their seats, um, and this is where we think, well, we don't need technology now. Let's use our minds. Let's use what resources we have. Let's try to think of something. When I got them to think about the how to use personification, and I said, personify everything that's in the classroom. You don't need to use your device at all. Just personify everything in the classroom. Those dictionaries, what are they doing at the back of the room? They're just leaning up against, they're leaning against each other. I said, all right, what sort of personalities have they got? Oh, they're the know-it-all because they're full of words, and they get it when you really have to sort of get them to think and really, we
Well,
call it,
that's why I was asking, is it a motivation thing or actually a lack of creativity? I think, you know, they're too young to not be creative. I think it's just a matter of why is this interesting to me?
well, yeah, I think the creativity is, I do believe the creativity is innate. I do. But then is technology killing that creativity?
Well, I mean, if you watch them playing Minecraft, that's definitely a no, right? The things that they build in Minecraft is sort of ridiculous.
Yeah,
Like you think, wow, if you can do that in Minecraft, how do I get Minecraft in real life?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we've tried it, and I've asked them, try to, because when we were doing creative writing, I did actually say, I gave them, because they couldn't think of the visual image themselves, so I give them a visual stimulus, and then I said, look, okay, I tell you what, if you can't turn this picture into a story, turn last night's Fortnite episode whilst you were all playing, turn that. And unfortunately, when they were trying to describe it and a character dies in their story, he respawned.
Yeah, can you imagine? There'll be one day soon where people will look at a dead body and go, "Why is he not respawning?"
Right? Yeah,
I'm holding my hand over him. He's not healing.
yeah. So yeah, like I said, I'm at that point. I'm at that point. I do embrace technology. The education system has changed, and I'm always willing to change with it. This is why I got into education, because I love to learn, and I feel as though young people, sometimes they're the best teachers as well.
Oh,
when we're reading a story or we're reading a poem, they give me a complete alternative, and I think to myself, I've been teaching this poem for years, and I never thought of that angle. Yeah, it's really good, but and I like to sort of just tap into their thinking. So yeah, I do move with the times. I do move with the times.
You know what's really interesting is people have more agency today than they've ever done. They have more freedom to do anything that they want.
Yeah,
And I think the confines of that classroom and that syllabus and that curriculum that you have, I think that's just like unnatural now.
yeah, I agree.
Like you said, before school and home was all you had. That was your life.
Mm,
Not even close to their life now.
yeah, it's a distraction.
Not even a distraction. It's you feel put upon, I assume.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's actually, yeah, you're right. You're right. It is
How much agency do they have in the decisions that are being made about their schooling? I would contend probably close to 0%.
zero. Absolutely.
It's interesting, right?
Mm,
If you gave people choice, it is empowering. If you take choice away, well, it's the opposite.
yeah,
And in the contrast of having so much choice outside of school,
yeah,
like unbelievable amounts of choice.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. What's the answer? Do we do we give them the choice to really think about what they want to learn?
Did Dr. Zishan tell you what I'm doing?
No, we didn't.
Okay, so I, as a parent, most parents know this. Your child's attainment is directly proportional to the individual attention that they get. So for most people, that means tuition.
Mm,
So I'm taking that to an extreme and pulling my kids out of school, hiring a full-time teacher, and that teacher's job is twofold. One is to set the schedule. So today we're at the Tower of London, tomorrow the British Museum, next week Paris, next month Japan. And they set that schedule with the kids. So that's their choice.
okay.
And then they're not homeschooled, right? Homeschooling for me is the antithesis of building independent people.
Right.
Out in the world, interacting with grown-ups, getting more social interaction than they ever get in school,
Okay.
learning how to conduct themselves,
Right.
and then being able to just go deep into everything that they see. You're at the Tower of London. What did you learn in that room? Well, why don't we write and see what the difference is between what you all thought you learned in that room? Draw something, run an experiment. What questions do you have? Okay, well, we've written down all the questions. Where are we going to find the answers? Let's go find the answers. Um, you know, being in Japan for a month to 3 months, learning the language, learning new foods. Why do they do things like that? We don't do that.
Mm.
They have no trash cans in public in Tokyo.
Oh, really?
Society amongst itself agrees we take our trash home in a plastic bag with us.
Oh, wow.
They don't leave a stadium without cleaning it,
Yeah, I remember. I remember in that during that World Cup when they left the changing room.
right? But
Yeah.
that's a different culture, a different bit of learning, different perspectives. And so that my view is I have the ability to give my kids the very best. So why not deliver on that?
Yeah.
And then through that we can learn what we can do to improve education. So like conversations like this are really interesting because you're barraged with all the things that take power away from you as a teacher.
Mm.
Management, syllabus, curriculum, kids not wanting to be there, the pull of the phone, the parents not being co-opted into what's being learned.
Yeah.
And I think what I'd like to do is in this experiment, when I'm experimenting on myself and my kids, is to generate as many learnings as possible of what works and what doesn't.
Right.
How do you embrace technology in their learning? How do you motivate them in a way that produces world-class results? I'm not okay with them being excellent or brilliant. I want world-class. I want to see what can deliver world class.
Mm.
My youngest, he's turning 8 this month. Right now, at the age of almost 8, he wants to be a WWE superstar.
Yeah.
It's motivating to him. He's on the gymnastics bar for an hour to 2 hours every day. We went all over London talking to wrestling schools. None of them would take him because he was under 18. So he's now going to jiu-jitsu classes.
Oh,
He's
wow.
learning the fundamentals. But obviously being a wrestler is not just about the physical. You've also got to talk. You've got to craft the storyline. What story we're going to run? What music are you going to come out to?
Yeah.
Right? Who are you going to tag team with if you have to have a tag team? How are you going to come up with the moves? How are you going to communicate with them?
Yeah. What's a signature move?
Or his signature move is terrifying. Like you see him land it, like the person's going to die.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And so by giving him agency, it's a really simple exchange. I will do everything you ask for. You have to do what I want to.
Mm.
And then I always ask them, what does daddy want you to do? And the answer, all three of my kids, you want us to read. And great, that's the exchange. You can do everything else. I know you struggle with reading, which is why I want you to do it. Everything else you're going to choose to do.
Mm-hmm.
Until one day you turn around and said, Daddy, I read, and you didn't have to ask me.
Mm. And do your kids enjoy reading now?
They have too many other pulls on their attention.
Right.
So when so I'm divorced. So when they were living with me, there was um, a bookcase in every room, every bedroom, hallway landing, upstairs and downstairs. Everywhere had a bookcase.
Right.
That's not the case for them now. So my kids wouldn't go to sleep unless daddy read to them at least a few books. That's not the role model that they have right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why I was mentioning, the role models that kids have right now is like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they're entertained by. It's what they're being informed by. And so, how does that person behave? Well, like and subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've got to adopt the things that are entertaining them and have a meaningful discussion about shorts. So my kids know if they're on shorts, that's not good. Why is it not good? We go into a discussion about it. Well, shorts, erodes your intelligence.
Mm. And this is the thing. I mean, in today's world, parents, I find, are either too busy or just not invested enough
Well,
in.
they can't be. They're having to manage more than one job just to survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
So,
know,
and
you got a tax-free income, but you're still not flush, right?
no, of course not. Of course not.
Right? You're still having to worry about finances.
Of course, yeah. And I feel as though nowadays, because the pressures that parents find themselves in when they do get a moment to themselves, they just want that dopamine hit, and they just want to sit down and unwind and get on their phones and just allow their kids to sit in front of the iPad. So that dialogue is so important. But in this day and age, there's so many kids, unfortunately, they don't have that, and they don't have the resources to um, apply themselves and find themselves. And when I say resources, I mean with people as well.
Well, I
People.
mean, the analogy I like to use is traffic lights. If you get to a junction and there's no traffic lights, you'll be careful. If there are, you are abdicating responsibility to the traffic light.
Mm.
And so, you know, school is glorified daycare. You're handing over your kids.
Yeah.
You've abdicated responsibility entirely. You have nothing else to do. Now, obviously, a lot of parents will do the "Have you done your homework yet?" while watching TV.
Yeah.
um, and similar things. Pay for tuition. They're not doing it. They're paying somebody else to do it.
Mm.
I mean, they have knowledge to impart. They can do educational things, but as you said, they feel put upon as well.
Yeah,
And so, by abdicating responsibility, it's like turning on your GPS. You probably know the way, but if the GPS is on, your mind switches off.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the
You're right.
studies on this are fascinating on like how heavily the mind switches off when the GPS is running.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I drive around Dubai, and I still don't know where I am because I'm just reliant on Google Maps.
Right. We that whole Spider-Man thing with great power comes great responsibility.
Mm.
That's what's missing. We have so much in the way of nanny states that we just don't have much choice anymore. We have to do this and we have to do that. I've been retired for 5 years. The number of times I've been told that I have to do something, and I just smile and laugh and go, no, I don't. You telling me I have to do it is a reason for me not to do it.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting.
And for me, Donald Trump winning the election was a huge watershed moment. And Milei in Argentina as well. Hold on, you can just do stuff? Like he won with like so much less financing than his opponent,
Yeah.
which is unheard of. The only other person to do it was him.
Mm.
Hold on, you beat the system? That's interesting. What else can we do? A friend of mine went around on the Bakerloo line in London and started cleaning the graffiti because he was like, this is really bad. Like I don't feel good jumping on a train that has graffiti. A bunch of people started volunteering and joining him.
Oh wow.
The whole campaign went viral. Or it became a campaign. This is a guy I used to walk around the West End with, and he would tell people to pick up their litter when they were littering. Or if somebody's like jumping through the gate in the tube, he'd be like, "Look, we're all paying. You should pay too."
Mm. Nowadays, unfortunately, with the level of violence, people just stand and observe, and whenever they see something that isn't right, rather than calling it out, people just start recording it.
Sure. Well, I
And
mean, how do you feel being in a place where there is no crime?
personally,
Yeah.
yeah, love it. It's amazing. Um, Hence why we're there.
Like,
Because
like what
as a,
changes for you knowing that you don't have to worry about any of that anymore?
yeah, yeah, everything changes because I give my kids that choice. I give them that free will to go out and find themselves and work things out because they couldn't do it in London. When we're here, my eldest son Adam, he absolutely hates being here during the summer because he finds it so boring because we don't let him out. We can't send him off to the mall on his own, and that's kind of the life he's now become accustomed to. When he's in Dubai, he's hanging out with his friends, and he asks if he can go out on his own, and we let him. Um, and that's the reason why we made the move. As a father of two boys, I just didn't want to raise them in London. I didn't want him to be. I didn't like the direction that schools were going in too much woke left, and as a Muslim, it really does kind of what's the word I'm looking for? The paths just don't cross, shall we say?
Like, give
Um,
me, give me an example. Obviously, you must have examples of being a teacher of stuff that you found uncomfortable.
oh yeah, the whole sharing of bathrooms, sharing of
That's a
changing.
real thing.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
What?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in my last school when I was working before I moved back out to Dubai, the last school in the UK, the bathrooms they were shared bathrooms, and they didn't have doors. They didn't. So there wasn't a door that led into the bathroom. Um, so it was just the sinks, and then it was just like an open plan bathroom
Oh wow.
uh, with cubicles that both boys and girls could use, and the whole we had a couple of kids that wanted to transition from one gender to the other, and we all had to be accepting of it. And I raised my opinion. I said, look, I won't oppose it. I said, but I don't support this because my faith comes first, and no, this is haram. So I'm not going to buy into it. You can do whatever you want. And I use the analogy. I say, look, I said, like, I support Manchester United. I don't like Arsenal, but it doesn't mean that, you know, I'll start attacking Arsenal. You're free to support whatever you want. I'm not going to support who you support. So you carry on doing what you're doing. But just understand that I don't support it. So coming out then,
Commiserations, by the way.
you know, you've got to go through the hard times as well. You can't sing when you're just winning. Yeah, so you know, things like that. I didn't want my kids in that. You know, I think when they started making sex education compulsory, and you know, you didn't have the choice to opt out. Then they changed it from sex education to relationship education, and you know, that whole kind of just moving away from the religious values of it all. They wouldn't talk about marriage, but they would talk about, you know, uh, same sex relationships, and it was just not, it wasn't for me, and it wasn't for my kids. And I just thought, I don't want my kids to be. I don't want to teach my kids that. I want to be able to control, and that part of their learning, I want to be able to police that as a parent. So I did. So you know, into why before my eldest moved, went into secondary school. That's when we made the move. It was a tough move to make, because I'd gone through a very, very, very difficult time, where my father had just passed away, and so I was moving to another country and taking my mum with me, where we're five siblings, and it was very difficult, but it was something I was just so strong about, because I didn't want to start my kids in secondary education here and then move them eventually. I said, no, I've got to do this now. So I did. It was difficult, but yeah, and I'm glad.
How do you feel about it now?
Yeah, much better, much better. I'm glad we did what we did. And I'm glad when people try to push a narrative, an agenda. You know, when I'm living in a Muslim country, I can say, no, it's haram. We don't believe in that. It's haram. So let's shut that conversation down. Obviously, they know it. They know the rights and wrongs, but to always try to have something shoved down your throat and having to accept it. I'm not. No, I don't have to accept it. You can do whatever you want, but I don't have to accept it. That's up to you. That's your reality. It's not my reality. It's yours. So you can have it, but just don't expect it to be my reality.
So on one side, you can't read a book about pigs, and the other side,
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to find that middle ground.
there is no balance in the universe.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, but then again, I'd rather sort of not read Animal Farm if that was the case. Then then expose my kids to all this sort of
You're,
I call it nonsense.
you're not going to take a stand and read Adam Farm out loud.
Well, to be honest, I did. I actually
Okay.
did. Yeah, in that school, I said we're doing it, and I think what happened, especially in that school, because the first time I went out to Dubai, this was in 2015, and everybody was so. I remember the head talking about life in a Muslim country, and I said that term that you're using, Muslim country, is very broad because the United Arab Emirates is completely different to Turkey, which Turkey is completely different to Indonesia. Indonesia is completely different to Pakistan. That term that you use in Muslim country, I mean, you've got to be a little bit more specific. Oh, you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do the other. So all these Western English teachers were asking us, oh, are we not allowed to do this and are we not allowed to do that? And obviously, I'd been to Dubai a few times. I went there for my honeymoon, and you know, we'd go there for holiday as a family, and that's why we moved because we just enjoyed it as a holiday destination. And I said, look, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want out here. They just don't want you to put it out on Front Street. They don't want you to see it. And I said, if I was going to describe Dubai, I would say it's Las Vegas in a burqa.
Wow,
You know, do whatever you want, just don't show anyone.
the irony. Maybe that's your book.
Yeah.
That's the title.
Only when I leave. Only when I leave the UAE.
What a great place to end. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for talking to us.
You're very welcome. It was so nice to meet you, and hopefully, inshallah, we could do it again.
For sure. Enjoy your summer holidays.
Yeah. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Nice time.